listening to the Bigfoot Society podcast, and I'm Jeremiah Byron. Every week I talk to individuals who have experienced Sasquatch in some way or another, so you won't want to miss an episode. Make sure you're subscribed on the platform that you're listening to, and share this episode with a friend. It does not cost a thing, and it helps the show continue to grow. If you'd like to hear Bigfoot Society episodes early and ad-free, you can do so by becoming a Patreon supporter or a YouTube channel member. Links to those are in the show notes. In Bigfoot Society, I've taken far too much of your time so far, so let's get on with the show. All right, Bigfoot Society, I've got the privilege of talking to a gentleman who contacted me from East Texas. His name is Chris. How's it going tonight, Chris?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great, Chris. I can't even talk about stuff that's coming up for 2024, man. It's going to be awesome. I got stuff going on, but I am beyond excited to talk to you tonight. We've been trying to, I think, get this set up for a little bit of time, and it does sound very interesting. Without any further ado, I'm just going to pass it right over to you, Chris, and feel free to share what you are experiencing in your area.
Awesome. I bought this piece of property outside of Avenger it's going on 4 years ago. It's got a little spring-fed creek through the middle of it with some pretty good-sized spring pools. Obviously, all the wildlife, the deers, the big cats, everything else we've got out there. These are old creeks, so they've been coming here for years and years. A whole bunch of wildlife out there. And of course, I'm from East Texas, so I've lived here in East Texas. I've hunted these woods my entire life. I'm 53 now, so I know everything we have out here. But since I've gotten this piece of property, I've never seen it, but I have heard so many different things, I can't tell you what they are. For example, one thing about this piece of property that I wanted to do, when I got out there to build the cabin, I wanted to do everything by hand, old school, so that it's what I tell people, I want it to look like a Norman Rockwell picture when they come down there. So with that being said, I set me a tent up out there and everything else, so while I'm working, I've got a place to be. So a few nights of the week, I would stay out there while I'm clearing brush and things like this. And that's when I started noticing something not normal. And what would happen would be, the first thing I would hear was being out there in East Texas like that is so quiet. You can drop a Q-tip on the floor and hear it. It's so quiet at night out there. And I would hear a tree knock. And I've never heard these anywhere in my life. And it was 3 knocks. You can tell it's wood on the side of a tree. It's unmistakable. That's what it is. And for the first night I heard it, and I thought, what the world did I just hear? And then a few hours later, I heard it again. And I didn't think too much of it, to be honest. And a few nights went by, and then I stayed out there again. And sure enough, every night that I would stay out there, I would hear that. And I never could pinpoint what it would be. And I would try to shine the light out. I'd try to go out there the next day and look at it, things like this. I cannot figure out what it was. This rocks along for, I don't know, a month or two. And one night I'm out there, and I hear a howl. Now, when I first bought this property, there was only another house at the end of this county road, and we're in the thick woods out there now, and they're off the grid, not really off the grid, but they're way up by themselves and stuff, so there's nothing else around. But it's really good hunting land still. I have tons of deer and everything else coming through there, big cats, bobcats, you name it, all coming up in there to that spring pool. And so this one particular night, I heard a howl. And I know we have all the coyotes, obviously. I know we have the small red wolves. And we even have some gray loafers that a lot of people don't think we have down here, which is wolves. But I know for a fact we do because I've seen them. And I know what they sound like. I know what the big cats sound like when they scream. I know what the bobcat sounds like. I know what the screech owls, all that, everything sounds like. This was a very deep, long, very vocal and loud howl with almost a growl sound in it. And I've never heard that in my life. I listened to it, and when it started, I sat straight up, and then I listened until it quit. Then I listened for anything else. I don't hear anything else. Well, that was new. So this rocked on about 5 months while I'm building the cabin. Different times I'd be out there at night, and I'd hear these things. And I've heard that howl probably 4 times now. Now, over the period of almost 4 years that I live out here, we used to have a very large hog population out there. But the county or the state, one of the two, had spent some money to try to get the population down. So they hired some hunters to come in and take the hogs out. And they're down, they took about 80% of them out, I would say, of that general area. So since the hog population dropped, I've noticed two things. I've not heard the howl anymore. I've not heard the tree knock anymore. And I've not been seeing the big cats anymore either. Obviously, they were coming up using that as a food source, whatever this is. Now, during all this time, you could hear, at times, we could be 4 or 5 of us sitting out on the porch of the cabin after we got it built. We can be sitting out there just having a good time, talking, listening to music or whatever, and you can hear something walking close by. And we'll turn everything off and listen. You can definitely hear, and it's a large bipedal, like a human walking. And then when we all try to get real quiet, it'd get quiet, and we'd talk a little bit and still listen, and you can hear it walk around a little bit. You can shine the light all you want all night long. I don't care what kind of light you use. You just never can see anything. And this happens on a pretty regular basis. I'm out and about working in different areas of the country all the time, and my son and his friends or stuff will go up to the cabin and things like that. And everybody that's ever been there has heard this. Matter of fact, I've got people that refuse to go back to the cabin now because they hear that walking around out there, and they can't figure out what it is. My son is in there one night, and he's got the little fire going, and he's sitting in the little living room there talking on the phone to his girlfriend, and actually has her on speakerphone. And then all of a sudden you hear something really loud. He said something really loud slapped the back corner of the cabin, real loud. And it's so loud that when his girlfriend heard it, she said, "What was that?" He said, "I don't know. Something hit the cabin." So then he thinks, wait a minute, Dad's here trying to pull a trick on me or something. So he calls me, "Hey, where are you at?" I was in, I think, Wisconsin at the time, or Minnesota at the time. And he says, "Definitely wasn't you. Something hits the back corner of the house." He goes out there with the gun, the light, and everything. He never can see anything. He can hear a bipedal walk after a little while, but not right away. He didn't hear it. So he never could pinpoint what it was. So then we got to thinking, okay, we've got somebody sneaking down here because it's a new place. Somebody's coming down here, probably didn't know you were here. Maybe they're going to try to break in and steal a gun or whatever. So we started really watching for that kind of thing. And a human, I don't know how to say this politely, but they're not real smart if they're a crook to begin with. So they're going to walk through sand, dirt, mud, something. They're going to leave tracks. They're going to leave a trace of some kind. Well, we never got a trace of any kind. And to get into that property the way it is, because I left it very wooded except for just the near area around it, just enough of a fire break around it and things like that. You would have to go, if you're going to try to come in there at night, there's no way you're going to walk through these woods without just getting tangled up in vines and briars and everything else. You're going to have a lighter. You're going to get tore up and hurt. There is no evidence of anybody coming through brush or anything around the surroundings of it. And then every other way you have to come in, there's area you will cross sand or mud or something. We have no footprints or anything out there. So it's not a person coming down there messing with us. We ruled that out pretty quick. And besides that, nothing was ever locked up and nothing ever stolen. We've got steel chainsaws and things like that sitting out unlocked. And if somebody would have been coming down there, then they would have picked that up and run off with it. Nothing come up missing. So it's not a person coming down there. And then at times you can be sitting out there, and this happened once, the last time I'd say about 3 months ago. My son and I were sitting on the porch talking. We both came up there about the same time. We were sitting out there just talking. It just got good and dark. And the god-awfulest, almost a rotten egg, wet dog smell you've ever smelled, all of a sudden drifts through there. And I'm looking at my son, what in the world is this? And then within a minute, that smell just drifts on off. There's no wind blowing, so it wasn't like there's people near me now that have bought property near me now, and it's not like that there was their septic system or something. You got a smell of that or something because there's no wind at all. Now, this has happened several times. And one other thing I will say, since the people bought the 60 acres across the road from me, they cleared out a lot of the timber and made a lot of pasture out there. He's got a few cows and a horse and stuff like that, and he keeps out there. And Since that has happened and the hog population down, I've not been hearing howl. But I tell you one thing that was very interesting that happened. My grandson comes out there and stuff. I really keep an eye on that creek, make sure there's no snakes and things like that. If I know he's coming out there, I'll check it all out and things like that real good. And this particular day, I found a pretty good size, probably about a 3.5-foot water moccasin. And so I shot it and killed it. And I was working, so I just took a rake and tossed it up on the far bank for right now while I was finishing the work I was doing. And I got done with it and went back over there, and of course it's dead. Shot it with a 12 gauge, has no head on it, can't crawl around. It's 5 or 6 hours later. And the reason I'm telling you that is because, so later when I tell you what's fixing to happen, you'll know that snake didn't move on its own just from its muscles. But I went back over there and I took the rake and I picked it up and I carried it to the back of the property. And there's a place back there where the hogs would get down and wallow in the mud in the summertime and things like that to get them wet, to cool them off and things like that. And then they would scrape on the tree to get that stuff cleaned off of them. So I tossed that snake down in there close to where that mud pit was. But since they hadn't been in there in a little bit, it was dry. So I tossed it over in there. Now that thing landed upside down in a muddy area, just like a little 1 foot by 1 foot little muddy patch it landed in. And then pretty much the leaves had all fallen around here, there, and everywhere. The next day, my son and I said, let's go back there and see if the hogs came back and ate that snake. So we come back there, and the snake is not there, so we thought the hogs got it. And we get to look around, but there's no evidence of hogs anywhere. And then we see the snake. It's 3 feet from where we dropped it, and you can still see the indentation in the mud where it laid upside down in the mud. Now it's about 3 feet away. It's sitting right side up on a little ledge, almost like it crawled there. But I shot it with a 12 gauge with buckshot, and it laid in one spot for about 6 hours before I took it back there and threw it down. So it wasn't muscle contraction or anything caused the snake to move. The interesting thing was in that mud close to where that snake lay, you can still see the scales on the top side of the snake because it's upside down. You can see it looked like a barefoot print. In other words, like if you didn't have your shoes on, you step in the mud, your heel and part of the left side or the right side of your foot, either whether it's left foot or right foot, you can see that indentation in the mud. Of course, the toe area was over leaves, so you couldn't see any of the toe marks or anything. And I asked my son, and we're the only two there. I said, did you come back here earlier or something without shoes on? No, I ain't been out here without my shoes on for no reason. We got a heel print in there, and it's not really large, but it's definitely a heel print in half of a foot. And so we got pictures of that and everything because we thought, what in the world? I don't even know what to think. But I guess over the entire period of time, we've probably had a total of 20 run-ins with whatever's making these sounds, as far as hearing the footsteps, the walking, the smells. Say the howl I've heard 4 times, and each time I hear it, I stop dead still and I listen long and hard at that howl. And because first time I heard it, I thought, let me try to figure out where it came from. And then after I realized this is something I don't know what is, then I started really trying to listen to it so I know it if I hear it again. And so anyway, I've never seen at all whatever's making this sound. But we definitely have something in those woods that's different. That's not, I was fixing to say not native to East Texas, but it could very well be native to East Texas. I don't know, but, and this is one thing here. Ask most people, have you ever seen a wolf in the wild? And most everybody you ask will tell you, yeah, I know wolves exist, but no, I've never seen one. Never got a wolf on a trail cam even. You get coyotes on a trail cam all the time, but you never get a wolf on a trail cam, hardly ever, because they're very keen and very smart. So my thing is, if there's wolves out there that I know for a fact are there, and you can talk to Texas Parks and Wildlife Division, and they'll tell you for a fact they're there as well, and you've never seen them, doesn't mean they're not there. They're still there. So we have something that's here that's very familiar with the woods, and I know I don't know what to say. I don't know what to call it. As a thing, my little property's called Bigfoot Springs because we got all them springs out there. And then my grandson, when he comes out there, he tells me, "Oh, I'm gonna set Bigfoot traps." So I don't know if he's ever set a Bigfoot trap or not, but if I'm ever disappeared, y'all come look out there. I may be in a Bigfoot trap somewhere that he's made, but there's something out there, and But here's the thing about it. I've been up in Colorado before, and I've encountered a grizzly bear up there, or brown bear rather, at a pretty close distance. And before I ever saw it, my senses knew it was there. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. My adrenaline starts pumping. And I've never seen it, never heard it, but I knew it was there. And I knew I was in trouble. I knew I needed to get out of there. My dad spent the last 23 years of his life in Lincoln, Maine, up on a mountaintop. So I got up there one time, and I encountered a bull moose, and the same thing before I ever saw that bull moose and knew he was there. Same thing. My senses knew he was there. I knew I was in trouble. But whatever this is, I don't feel threatened in any kind of way. There's no worry of my hair on the back of my neck don't stand up. There's no worry, am I going to be attacked or anything like that. I've got a bigger fear of the hogs than whatever this is. I don't know. It's pretty interesting. I'd like to know what it is. I put out game cams, and I've caught everything under the sun on my game cams, everything else except whatever this is. I walked out the back door of that cabin going to the smoker, which is 15 feet away from the back door, 20 feet away from the back door, and just on the other side of the smoker stands one of them panthers. And she's standing there looking straight at me, broadside, twitching her tail. And I knew not to get near her. I knew there would be danger with her if I got near her, but I wasn't too worried about her. But whatever this is, it's definitely different. I don't see it to be harmful to me in any kind of way. Unlike everybody else, I'd like to know what it is.
Absolutely.
I'd like to see it sometime to figure it out.
Oh, that is, you're really having some interesting things go on that property. You'd sent me a write-up of what you're experiencing earlier, and I just want to make sure, are there any other things that you've been hearing that are out of the ordinary besides howls?
I've heard the howls. I've heard the tree knocks. And you know how when a deer bleats, that little sound it makes? I've heard something like that. And I do have several does that bring their fawns down every year. And so I know what they sound like when they're communicating back and forth, doing what they do. And the buck, even when he makes the sounds he makes. But there is another sound that I heard one day that I put off as probably squirrels, because I didn't hear it long enough to be able to get a good enough, lock on it to really tell what it is. But it's almost like I don't even know how to describe it. Have you ever heard chipmunks chattering or squirrel chattering and stuff, and the sounds that they make? It's almost like that. But it was at nighttime, and that was pretty odd as well.
Like chipmunk chatter. I'm sure it sounds like you're familiar a little bit with things in the Bigfoot community, or maybe you're not. I guess I could be assuming that. But have you ever heard the Sierra sounds at all? The
what sounds? I don't guess so. Now, we do have Jefferson not far away from us, probably a 20-mile drive from where I live, that they have some kind of Bigfoot. Well, I'm trying to think of what they call it. Some kind of Bigfoot gathering where they talk about it, trade research, things like that.
I would be really interested if you were to look up the recording of the Sierra sounds, and just so that I'm curious if it's similar to what you heard. So the Sierra sounds were a recording made by Ron Moorhead in the 1970s out in California, and allegedly is recording of Bigfoot talking back and forth with each other. And it almost sounds, another name for it is samurai chatter. Once you hear it, you'll be like, this is probably the weirdest thing I've ever heard in my life. If you could, after this, I would be really curious what your thoughts are when you hear that audio.
Yeah, I'll definitely look it up and listen to it.
How loud is that? When you would hear that weird noises, was it really loud, or the sound of a normal chipmunk?
The chatter or the howl?
The chatter.
The only one time I heard it, I would say it was within 50 feet of me. So it wasn't like it was a screech loud. It was more of just a low, normal kind of a tone that whatever's making it a normal tone it would make, not like it was distressed or anything like that. But since I've heard that, I've not heard it all since. But now the howl, the first time I heard the howl, now that was before both the people had one neighbor that bought property across the road and one neighbor that bought property on the same side of my road that backs up to my fence line. Now, before they got there, excuse me, I'd say the first two howls were, I would say, within 100 yards or less. Extremely loud. Close enough that I went out the next day both times and looked around to see if I could find any kind of evidence of any kind, see what it was. I found nothing. Now, the second two times I've heard it, it's been further down in the river bottom, the creek bottoms down there, because, like I say, they cleared a lot of property. Both of them did, and put homes there and stuff like that. Whatever it is has moved further back down in the creek bottoms. And since the hog population has dwindled down, like since they've hunted them down, I haven't heard it since.
I bet once you clear out that food source, when you heard the howls, sometimes people can describe when they hear something like a howl, they'll say, I could almost tell what the size of the creature was that was making this sound. Did you get a feel as to how big this creature may have been that was making the howl sound, or was it hard to gauge that?
Oh, no, you could gauge that pretty good, because have you ever been in the woods and heard a bear growl or howl, or not howl, but growl or basically roar in the woods? Have you ever heard that?
No.
Okay, if you've ever heard that, anybody that's ever heard that, you can tell, or if you've ever heard a panther or a big cat of any kind scream at you, you can tell the difference in the size of the panther and size of the bear just by it. And I would say whatever's making this howl would probably be bigger than a good-sized brown or grizzly bear. That would just be a guess. I don't know. But just listening to it, it's got a lot of force behind it. It's pretty serious, whatever it is.
Sure, it's probably similar to like when you're at the zoo and you hear the lion roar, and you're like, okay, that creature's a lot bigger than an otter. It's a pretty big guy over there. Yeah. I know what that's like. Oh, that's wild. So you've mentioned that your neighbors were clearing some property, clearing some wood out. Have you ever talked to your neighbors to ask them if they've ever experienced anything weird or noticed anything out of the ordinary?
They've both at different times come to me and asked me what it was. The last two howls that I've heard, and I'm in and out all the time. It could be going on some more that I don't know. Like now, I'm down south of Houston right now, so I'm not up at the cabin. So it could be happening more often than I know. But at both times, they've both at different times come to me and asked me, have you ever heard something sound strange? And I know what they're getting at, and I'll be like, oh, what are you talking about? And they said, man, we heard this howl. What is that? Is that like a big wolf or something? They've heard it, and they can't figure out what it is either. Matter of fact, Anthony, he has a lot of guns and stuff. He likes to hunt and things like that. And it disturbed him pretty good one night. Everybody around there has heard it. But like me, and nobody knows what it is and what's making it.
Going back to the footprint that you saw in the hog area with the snake, if you were to remember, do you remember any dimensions of how long the footprint probably was? Or
Yeah, we had laid a dollar bill on the ground by it, and the dollar bill was about the length of the hill, was the dollar bill. So it was at least the length of maybe $2.50 bills placed in the end. Just based off of how the hill looks and based off how my hill looks, that would be a pretty good guess of how big it was. But if you look at where the hill was and the way it was, if you walked up and you squatted down to pick something up and put it somewhere, it really looks like something squatted down right there and picked it up and set it up on the ledge where it was. Like it looked at it and set it up there. But I don't know. That's just a guess. I couldn't tell you because I didn't have my cameras out there, the game cams out that night. So I don't know. And I do know we have honey bears in that area because just north of me, about 50 miles up around the Clarksville area, things like that, up in northeast Texas there. You have a very large population of little small black bears and honey bears there. And we do have them migrating down. Matter of fact, over on Lake of the Pines, one of the stores out there had an issue with trash being torn out of their dumpster. So they put a camera to figure out what's getting trash out of the dumpster. And they've got some really good video of one of them little black bears going in there, pulling a bag out, tearing it open, trying to find something to eat in it. So I know we have them through my area because where he's at, where that was taken was south of where my property is. And then they're from a little bit further north of me. So I know they're coming through there. And then my son and I talked about that. You know, you'd think it was the back foot of a black bear. But you look at one of the largest black bears that we have in Texas and gauge that, the largest back foot, based on that dollar bill laying by the hill that we took the picture of. his whole back foot is the size of the heel of whatever this was, of the black bear. So we ruled out pretty quick it wasn't a black bear, unless some kind of way a Kodiak bear got down here or something, which I don't think that's the case. We'd have a lot of cattle coming up missing or something like that. But,
I combine that with the knocks you've been hearing and the howls. I would say it's probably not a bear that you're experiencing on your property for sure. Have you ever put out any audio recorders around your property?
no, I haven't, but I've thought about several times, talking to people in the area and seeing if I could, go back on the properties and follow the river, creek bottoms down to the river and stuff like that, and just, see what I can come up with and things like that. I just, work and everything else. I haven't done it yet. But I will tell you something that's pretty interesting. Now, this is just me assuming, so I don't know for a fact that, I bought me an enduro motorcycle just to ride the back roads up there when I'm at the cabin. It's just real nice. You take off out in the evening and everything. It's just so beautiful up there. And every single time I go out, I see a guy, he's on his four-wheeler riding along, and he's got cameras mounted all over his handlebars. And it goes out. Sometimes I go down through there in my truck or something, going somewhere. Every evening you see that man riding with them cameras on there. And I've wondered several times if he's seen or heard something and he's riding around looking to see if he can see or hear something again. Because I've never seen people that are like the jackass millionaires. They're doing their flips and racing and they're doing all this kind of crazy stuff and they got GoPros on. But this guy's got 6 of them mounted across his handlebars, aimed in every direction. And I wanted to stop him and talk to him and see what's going on, but I just left it alone. And I just always thought, I bet he's trying to figure out what's making that noise.
That's a lot to have hooked up to your bike. You're saying 6 cameras.
Exactly.
Unless he's like a YouTube guy, but either way, I'm not going to tell you what to do. Might be a fun conversation if you run into him again.
Exactly.
Oh, man. It's wild. Have you heard anything going on recently from the Jefferson area or?
No, I've not heard anything there. We go out to Caddo Lake all the time because we like Caddo so much. And then Jefferson's such a neat little older town with all the antique shops and stuff. Tanya likes to go in the antique shops when we're up there and stuff. But we walked on the little walkway that goes out to the river back there. And there's a woman that's lived down there with her children, raised her children down there for years and years. And we was talking to her one day back there about her little cabin and stuff. And she's never said nothing. I think a lot of people up there like the fact that they're known as a Bigfoot area or whatever. Matter of fact, they got some Bigfoot statues they'll put out and stuff. And that's just the theme of the town. What is it? The fall festival or whatever it is they have up there. I've not been to it yet, but they talk about it. And you'll hear some of them old timers talking and they're like, hey, now listen, this is, I don't know what they've seen. And I'm not saying they have or have not seen anything, but you can tell some of them have definitely seen something. They know something's there. But I'd be interested to know. I would really like to take about a month or so to where because I like to hunt and camp and fish and everything else. And it would be really nice to take about a month or so and just get out in the woods and just get out there and stay out there and figure out what's going on.
Oh, I agree. And can you remind me how recent ago was the most, or how long ago did anything happen that you think may be related to Bigfoot on your property?
About 3 months ago would have been the god-awful rotten egg smell.
Okay.
And things like that was about the last thing. And see, that happens a lot of time out there. But like everything else, you can't see nothing. And of course, it's very thick woods. And if you've ever been out in the woods hunting anywhere, you can have a mule deer 20 yards from you, and he knows you're looking at him. He's standing a certain way. You can be looking at him and not see him. If there's thick woods, any animal that's in the woods on a regular basis knows how to hide. And I just can't see it. And matter of fact, what is this? This is January. So it was probably back in maybe August, I think. Late August, 1st of September, my son and his girlfriend were out there. And they heard the walking up close to the house. And I was out in the tool shed. And she hollered out at me out there and said, hey, where are you at? And I said, I'm in the tool shed, standing there looking out the window, waving at her. And she said, somebody's behind the cabin. So I go up there, and my son is in the back there. And he's got the light out. Of course, he's got the gun. And you can hear it walking through the woods at a pretty good clip, but you could not see it. And then he'd, hey, let's head out there and let's dance. No, let's don't head out there. Whatever it is that's heading away from us, let's just let it head away from us. Leave it alone.
Yeah, probably a wise choice.
But it scared her bad enough. And every single person that's ever been out there has heard something. And I've had 2 people swear they'll never come back out there ever again, just from hearing something walking around. It scared them so bad.
Have you ever heard any weird, I'm just going to throw some weird stuff out, whistling or the noises that sound like a baby crying?
Now, down in, not a whistle, but like the baby crying down in the bottom before my neighbor cleared all that property and put his cows out there and stuff, I've heard that sound a couple of times. Almost sounds like a woman screaming like she's deathly afraid or something. But what that is our big cats.
Right.
Those cats will sound that way. And I heard that one night, that scream out there one night, and then just about a minute later, you heard a pig squalling as hard as it could. So you know those cats. And then you heard one of the cats yell pretty loud. So the cats were down there hunting. Matter of fact, my neighbor that's right on my fence row, they had a chicken pen and put in, and they had chickens coming up missing and everything. I said, put your roof over the top of it, because at least wire, because we have eagles in the area, we have hawks in the area, and coyotes, wolves, everything else get in there, and we do have big cats. So they put the wire over, and they spent a lot of time and money and done it really nicely. She put out a game cam aimed straight at her chicken pen and put a light with a sensor on it, motion sensor on it. And when it went off, she's got very good pictures of that big cougar. And I'm thinking it's the male, because you can't see well enough to see if it's male or the female, but you can see how big they are on this big cougar. He's standing up on top of the pen, looking down through there like, how am I going to get through here? And just behind it, you can see the mama with the 2 cubs standing there. All 4 of them are just as clear as can be on that picture. So we have very large cats down there, but the howl is definitely not those cats, because I've been in East Texas my whole life and fished on a lot of these different creeks around here, like Big Sandy Creek for one. And if anybody knows East Texas, knows that one very well. And you hear them cats down there all the time. And it is definitely not a cat.
Just to maybe ask it a different way, nothing that sounds like an actual, like a human baby cry. Nothing weird like that, right?
No, now you will hear something that sounds kind of like that. But then again, those big cats will make sounds like that. And I think that when they make those sounds, it's when they're hunting, trying to draw something closer to them.
Okay.
It's like coyotes will yelp and stuff. One will yelp like it's hurt or something, try to draw a pet, a dog or something out to it, and the others attack it when they have dinner. And so those cats will do that. And here's another interesting thing. You sit out there. Of course, I don't stay there all the time. I'm just there here and there at time to time. And one time I stayed out there for 3 months straight. And you always know when the large predators are in the area, because I have tons of squirrels out there, birds out the wazoo. You have rabbits and everything else all over, the small game animals. And when the large predators are in the area, those things are gone. You won't see a bird. You won't see a squirrel. You won't see a rabbit. You won't see nothing. And it's just as quiet in the mornings when you wake up. There's no birds chirping. There's nothing making a sound. When the large predators are not in the area, and I'm just assuming the big cats or the wolves or whatever this is making a sound, when they're in the area, you hear nothing. When they're not in the area, I have a tin roof on top of that cabin, and it sounds like they're running a relay race up there, the squirrels. And I have a possum every once in a while. He'll get on top of that roof in the daylight, and he'll bask himself in the sun. And raccoons galore. Matter of fact, we had 11 baby raccoons this year that grew up out there. And they're all over the porch, all over the top of the house, everything else. They're just everywhere out there. But when the large predators are in the area, them things are gone.
Oh, that absolutely makes sense. Speaking of weird noises, have you ever heard anything that sounds like a whoop, any whooping type noise in your area?
No.
Okay.
Now, we have several large owls out there, and I hear the owls, but they're unmistakably owls, and it's nothing like that. And, of course, you hear the hawks that they make, which was unmistakable. But, no, nothing like that.
Any situations where it's like a really large rock is thrown towards the cabin or anywhere on your property? Like all of a sudden a huge rock just gets thrown?
Not a rock. I thought a stick hit the side of the house one night. But then again, I have large trees all around the cabin. And so I thought, could that have fallen out of the tree and hit it? Didn't know for sure, but no rocks. And I've got large, I don't know, rock all around up there. Obviously small too, but never anything like that.
What type of trees do you have on your property?
Every one of them. Pine tree, sweet gum, oak, pin oak, red oak, white oak, you name it. We've got them all. Dogwood. I've got every tree out there.
Okay, gotcha. So you do have oak and like acorns and stuff like that?
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Okay.
Tons of it. And see, that's another thing. You hear them fall and hit the roof or the side of the house, the cabin all the time, or the side of the tool shed.
Yeah. A lot of different berries on your property too?
No, not berries, like blackberries, nothing like that. I don't. Now, I do have muscadine. We have a lot of muscadine out there. And they are very sweet when they are out. And that's something I haven't thought about. I used to, as a kid, I remember all the muscadine vines we had around the old home place, which was right there in Wood County in East Texas, not far from where I am now. They would be laying all over the ground as they started ripening. They'd fall off the tree and stuff. I don't ever find, and until we're just talking about this, I don't ever find anything on the ground. Now, that could be the raccoons, the possums, the squirrels. I mean, there's a million things to be eating at, but I just don't. I mean, I've never found anything on the ground.
And it's something maybe to keep an eye out for. And there could, on your property, keep an eye out for anything that maybe looks like a shelter that's been made, or any weird trees that are broken a certain way, or anything that looks like it's broken. Well, it's like, how did that get broken by itself? That's crazy. It's huge.
All right, here you go. Along the spring, of course, the creek goes up, how a creek will meander and S around and stuff like that. And it's got one part where it will split off and it makes a little island back there and goes to the back corner of the property. Now, on the back corner of the property, just across on the farmer's side, where there's a lot of trees and a whole lot of thick brush, is where we have a pack of coyotes that live in that general area. They stay out there all the time. But I had a point I was fixing to make, and I forgot what I was saying. I swear. What'd you say, Tanya? Oh, the shelters and stuff like that. What are you talking about? No, there's no shelters. But I was fixing to tell you something about that. Oh, you said you're talking about the broken
stuff.
Like
broken stuff.
Along the edge of that creek. Have you ever seen the way the Indians in this country, years ago, obviously, they would break a tree over and break it back up straight? Actually, not break it, just more bend it and everything, and kind of hold it there where it makes like an S almost.
Absolutely.
And then it'll grow that way, and that will mark their way through the territory. I have 4 of them trees along that creek that can't be more than about 6 inches around. So they're not old enough to be from back in that area. If it would have been, looked like 100, 200-year-old tree or something, I could think, okay, maybe somebody did that years ago. But these aren't that old. I would say maximum some of these trees couldn't be more than 20 years old that are broke like that. And some of them, the break is still down low, where it was broke not too terribly long ago. Some of it's 15 foot in the air where the tree's already grown and it's still broke, but it's that high up now. And it's definitely come straight up. It'll come straight over one way or the other and then broke and go straight back up. How many have we got? Probably 5, 4, 6? Yeah, we've probably got 4 or 6 of them out there.
That's really interesting.
Very interesting. Yeah. Everybody comes out there. They're just, this is a very interesting place out there.
A while back, you'd mentioned where you had the slap on the outside of the cabin. Did anyone ever go, after that happened, did they go to the back of the cabin and look at the wall where they thought it may have been hit to see if you could see like a handprint or how high or anything like that?
My son went out there and he had a light and a gun, obviously, and he looked over. He never found nothing.
Okay.
And I can track a gnat across the desert in a sandstorm, and I've not found anything out there that I can see. For example, when I was first building the thing, I had the cabin to where the walls were up, the windows weren't put in yet, the roof wasn't on, it was just raftered, but I had some plywood on the exterior of the walls. And so I was staying down in the tent that night. That we had about 17 or 19 at the time, pretty large hogs that roamed around there in their herd, and they were coming through the property. And I went and got inside the cabin because it's up on stilts, they can't get to me. And I took my cot and I laid it in there. I thought, I'm just going to stay the night in here. I'll be just fine. And earlier that next morning, I heard the most god-awful racket on the back porch. I thought, what in the world? And I didn't even have the doors on the cabin yet, so I just had some plywood leaning across the bottom of it where you could step over to go in and out, because I didn't want something to just walk in there. And on the back porch was a little pig. It couldn't have been 2 months old, maybe, very small. And the coyotes had chased it down there and were trying to get it. And you know how they'll hunt in different packs. The ones that were chasing it into an area, well, the other ones were coming back at it. And they were trying to get up on the tall part of the porch on the front side, but there were no stairs built yet, so they couldn't get up there. So to this date, I've still got the claw marks on there where they were trying to claw their way up to get up there. And that's been there for almost 4 years now. But whatever hit the back of the cabin left no claw mark. It left no indentation of any kind. It didn't leave the muddy of its hand or foot or anything on the side of the cabin. You just didn't see nothing. But then the interesting thing was there was no, because I keep everything cleared away so, if we get a fire or something, it doesn't get right up against the edge. So there was no sticks or limbs or anything laying there. Like limb fell out of a tree, hit the side of the house or the side of the cabin there. So there was nothing back there. But there's so many leaves on the ground too, there was no chance for a footprint to be left.
Man, that's some weird stuff. Sure, Chris, man. I would say continue to keep an ear out, keep an eye out. Man, you could probably get some cool recordings, maybe from an audio recorder. I know you haven't heard a lot lately, but I appreciate you coming on, Chris, and chatting about what's going on over at
Absolutely.
Bigfoot Springs. It sounds like a cool place. Please keep me up to date with if anything else weird happens there, which I'm pretty sure you will continue to experience stuff for sure.
Oh yeah, whatever's there it's there permanently, and I don't see it going anywhere, whatever it is. But like I say, I don't think it's out to hurt anything other than survive whatever species or whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, thank you for chatting tonight.
Hey, no problem. I appreciate you having me on here.
Here at Bigfoot Society, our goal is to provide a platform for those that have encountered Bigfoot to share their encounter in a safe environment. But we need to hear your story. If you've experienced something that you just can't explain, please send me an email at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Then we can start the conversation. And I know a lot of you have not shared your encounter at all. It's been 20 years. And it's time that you get this off your chest, and then you can get some well-deserved rest, because I know you haven't been sleeping. I understand what you're going through, and I appreciate every one of you listening.